really good thing to start with is a template, whether it be a piece of cardboard or something like that. But basically it's going to give us the location for our pins. And it's just simply a matter of going through, getting it on the wall. I'm going to mark the edge. Since we have large conduit pipe running here, we're basically going to have to split the material and fill in a section here along with our full section. So we're going to go ahead and add some pins in this area as well too. And then when you're in areas that are very tight, but you know we have to put material, we just go through and a number of spots. I want to stay clear of anything in regards to the disconnect action. The material going on this wall will be 2 inches thick, and so we got to compensate for that over here as far as where we're putting our pin. So we'll go ahead and place this then roughly 2 inches off that back wall to compensate for that. Also, we get into areas where the full template sheet is not going to fit into place, so you've really got to kind of eyeball it and look at the cuts that you're going to have to do. Now with thin conduit, we're able to basically embed that material into the sheets themselves by cutting a notch on the back of the material. So as long as we're getting coverage where we've got a pin every 12 to 18 inches, that's pretty well going to take care of any irregular cuts that you may have to make. It's also better to put more on than you may possibly need because they can always be cut off after the fact. And then you'll know that you've got good adhesion. Okay, our experience has shown that to help speed up the process of installing your insulation pans is to get a piece of cardboard or some kind of scrap material and just basically fill it up with the pins themselves. And that's going to allow you to go ahead and run your adhesive. Just from one to the other without having to pick up a new pin. And then when you install, just simply pull them off. And then from your installation standpoint, simply take your pin then, find your dot, go ahead and apply the fastener, just kind of move it around so that all the holes are filling up, or a majority of the holes are filling up with the adhesive. And then just simply move down to the next. Okay, we suggest that you go ahead and install the installation pins on the ceiling first and work your way down. That's really kind of a safety measure to help prevent you from backing into material or catching a pin as you're moving up. We're also going to install the insulation itself on the ceiling first. The reason that we want to do that is that we'll take the ceiling edge to edge. That way our side material will go ahead and provide edge support for the ceiling, providing additional support for it. But the material is not extremely heavy, so there really should be no concern that the pins are not going to hold the weight of the material itself. Okay, now that the insulation pins have had enough time to cure, we're ready to go ahead and start working with the insulation panels themselves as far as cutting them to size. We recommend that you go ahead and utilize the suit that we had provided because while the material is not an insulation, it's an insulation-like material, so it will have some irritant to it. So we include both the respirator and also the suit. We also suggest obviously standard safety goggles and hat as well too. One of the things that we want to do in this particular project is the ceiling is really populated with old and new electrical utilities. So we're trying to determine what is the best way to position our panels so that we can get the best yield out of the material and also have the least amount of cutting. What we suggest you do is go ahead and just do a rough sketch of all the ceiling utilities, go up and get some measurements, and then we're going to show you how to go ahead and notch the panels and cut the panels in. Okay, once we've had measurements to go ahead and cut our first panel, what we want to do is pick a panel, look at both sides of it, get the cleanest facing, if you will, to be forward facing to within the machine room. And we'll start laying out our dimension pattern on the back of the panel before we start cutting. Okay, once you have your layout on the back of the panel done, it's good to maybe, until you get accustomed to working with the material, to go ahead and mark basically that we've got conduit here, we've got the light, got the electrical box, because your cut is going to be a little bit different. Obviously on the box and also the fluorescent light, we're going to cut all the way through the material. Where our conduit is, when you've got standard 3/4 inch, 1 inch conduit, what we're going to do is actually just basically create a channel for that pipe to sit within, and we'll actually end up covering up over the face of it. Part of your installation kit includes a cutting knife for the material itself. We do suggest that you go ahead and use a respirator because again it is somewhat of a fibrous material. So we suggest you go ahead and cut out the channels for the 1 inch conduit first. That way the panel itself maintains some rigidity as you're cutting the various pieces out. Cutting process is simply a matter of basically following your markings on the back. And we're going down, roughly about the thickness of the blade. And the cutting is very, very easy, as you can see. And then for the channeling, after we make those cuts, we simply go in and peel out a channel. And again, you just want to go through the about half of the material. Okay, after we get in the cutting process, we suggest go ahead and leaving in some of the larger cut pieces, scoring it so that it's ready to come off, but it's going to help on the handling of the material itself, getting it into place, and won't tend to basically bend and possibly break or tear. Also on the electrical box area, basically we just carved it out all the way down to the facing. The material is 2 inches thick, so we've got plenty of coverage or open area in there to cover up that box. Okay, now as far as placing the panel, one of the things to pay attention to is our sidewall anchors. We want to make sure we get the edges up over those side anchors themselves. Basically we want to get a very tight fit edge to edge, so even though none of our machine rooms are going to be totally square, we're going to start with a square piece and then we'll adjust from there. Now we don't have any pins along the very outside edge, but when we install the side wall panels, basically it's going to give us all the support we need for the outer edge. But we don't have a lot of weight sitting here, so the fasteners we have in here is more than sufficient to maintain the weight. Sometimes your cuts and measurements maybe end up a little crooked. It's just a simple matter of we're just going to go ahead and shave a piece of this material and go ahead and install it. Basically, it'll have a compression pressure type of fit, so it'll fill in the gap. And if we get everything trimmed, we're going to go ahead and put the safety caps on then as well. Not that there's a lot of people playing on the ceiling of the machine room, but just as added safety. Okay, as you're moving along and installing your panels, you may come across an area where your pins are a little bit off and aren't really lining up. What you can do is, since we do have it supported by the pins that are up there right now, just to keep this in from sagging, we're going to go ahead and add another pin in this area. I'm going to put a little bit extra adhesive on here just so that we are sure that we're maintaining good contact with the ceiling. And then we'll just pull the end down, insert the pin all the way through. Once we have the pin on the ceiling itself, it'll take a little bit of time to cure, so we recommend just going ahead and leaving the pin so there's no actual downward force on the pin. And then we'll come back to that later. And put a green dot so we remember it's there. Washer will cover this up. But that'll give the adhesive time to cure enough to hold the weight of the retaining ring. You want to go ahead in the process, make sure that your smoke detector is covered up, just to prevent any false activations of the fire alarm too. And then keep roughly an inch to an inch and a half around the sensor itself. Well, we start at the bottom and go up, so that when we get to a point where we've got basically filler pieces, if you will, they actually will just sit up here basically as a compression type of fit. So we won't need any fasteners in that area. We're ready to go ahead and install our wall panels. Again, we got the same situation where we've got utilities that are in the way. We can go about this one of two ways. We can go ahead and basically mark on the panel roughly where our conduit is as far as the outside or bottom edge, and then simply basically draw in our cutting point itself. You can go ahead and keep it tight because the material will compress, and it actually ends up being a little bit cleaner because we can get it very tightly up and then just basically roll in the edges so it's not an exposed seam. The important thing to remember on the panels is where your insulation pins are, because they are going to come through the panel into your hand. Okay, now as far as completing the installation process for the panel itself, we've got two pieces of hardware. We've got a retaining disc and then also a safety dome cap. The best way to install these, instead of just forcing it on, pressing it straight back, a couple things may happen. It's going to slip and you're going to go ahead and stab yourself with the pin. But we found that it's easier to go ahead and just apply pressure and just gently rotate it. The material will compress if you press it on too hard, so the spin works out nice. You're able to get in and get a nice snug fit. Next step is to go in, basically cut the tip down to roughly 1/8 of an inch. And apply the safety. And install the safety belt. This prevents anybody from catching their clothing or any other personal effects on the fastener itself. Okay, we're going to place a panel in a difficult area, which is in the back corner behind the power unit itself. We're very limited on space back there, so we're unable to actually put the pins on the wall itself and then adhere to them. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and pre-install some of the installation pins, or actually just one on this one. I was able to get one of the pins on the wall that is accessible, but this one we'll just go ahead and put on. Add some adhesive to the back and let it cure over time. And since we don't have pins at the bottom, I'm also going to put a big stick point. So the one fastener that was already on the wall, that's going to be sufficient to hold the panel in place. The other one that we added after the fact, that will go ahead and cure over time. And then we just need to get our washer and our safety cap on here. Okay, what we're going to do now, since we've got this back panel in, again, because we don't have a great number of fasteners, we're going to use the side panel to basically shove up against that to basically give it some vertical strength. The side panel, we are fortunate we were able to get more fasteners in there, so these three will hold that in there adequately. On the difficult to reach places, having in just a couple of fasteners at the top is sufficient, because basically gravity is going to allow the panel to hang down straight, and there's not enough weight there that it's going to pull off or move. Okay, that concludes the installation itself. Now what we've done is installed a material that has got the highest acoustic sound rating that's available. And if you have any questions regarding your installation, please call 419-633-3178 and ask for your sales representative, and we'll be more than happy to assist you on your installation. Thank you.